People like me don't do podcasts like this for attention or money. We do it because we've uncovered truth and feel compelled and convicted to share it, because we realized that we were just like you at one time. We believed the narratives that we were fed, that we were programmed to believe, so that we would stay like the other sheep. And so what happened was I don't know what happened with other people. I can tell you what happened with me. On that day, the first month of the year, I'm trying to be careful so that the video gets through. On that day in the first month of the year, you know, with that number that comes after 5, that day was the very worst day of my life in so many ways. I went to what was a wonderful experience until the end, and I saw before me what I knew could never, ever, ever happen here. I had been to third world countries. I knew what it was like. I went to Salvador in '87. I saw the corruption. I saw what could happen. And it happened right there in front of me. And I didn't know what to do. All I knew to do was to fight, which meant to find out what happened and how it happened and when it happened and why it happened and who let it happen. I had a good, strong background. My husband, one of my husbands, that's another long story, was a John Birch coordinator. So I knew quite a bit from a right-hand perspective about history, but never had sought it out on my own. I believed the Bible was it, and for 33 years, that is the only thing I read for the most part. And everything that I read, I would measure against the Bible. Was my life good? It was life. It was good because my faith was strong, and I had lots of supernatural or just naturally super experiences and what other people would call just miracles, synchronicities that were unbelievable. So I believed that that was the support of my faith. And I knew from the minute I was a little girl that there was something in me that didn't make sense with words. And I saw things and felt things, and I didn't know ever how to explain it. So when I learned about the Bible, it made sense of that. So I latched on, and when I do something, I do it, which you'll see if you follow this, because I've done it. And I'm still doing it, and I probably will forever be doing it, because there's no end when you're looking for truth for your life. And that's what's most important to me. I want to live an authentic, real life. And I want clarity to know where I should be and who I am and what I'm doing. I want to do this right. I don't want to live with regret. I learned that from working 40 years in the cemetery industry. I was the last to let you down. Yeah, it was very difficult, but I never realized it until I retired. And I quit crying every day with people, which is another long story. At any rate, people like me feel compelled to share truth. Most of us don't do it for the recognition or the money. We just have a passion for truth, And I always have, from being little. I just could never tolerate anything I saw that wasn't just and true. And I was forever measuring. And if there's one thing that I probably am good at, it's being resourceful and being a good judge. And everything about me, my personality, my Lumosity reports verifies that. So it helps me to know what my strengths are. And it's certainly nice to know because I have a lot of challenges. One of which is, I believe, is the result of past trauma is ADHD. And sometimes it's really difficult for me to manage. It makes me very hyper-focused when I'm interested. But to do anything that I'm not interested is like climbing a mountain without shoes on. And I've learned a lot about it recently, and I would have said it was all puff if I hadn't had a brain scan. Because on that day in 2021, what happened was I came home and I started researching, but along with that, I went into the deepest depression. I also figured out and found out and uncovered that the Bible was fake. And so between the two things, everything I stood on fell out from under me, not to mention my mom dying in 2017, which had already had me on a cycle of downward spiraling. I did everything I could, but the depression lasted about a year and a half. And when I could, I started just reading and researching and looking, and I'm pretty good at uncovering things, which I've had a lot of experience in doing, which are some good stories too. One of the other things that I think was really helpful in my journey was that my mom and I had started researching ancestry, and where I thought we had come from, maybe we got brought over here with jail or something. I don't know. I never heard anything really wonderful about my ancestors, except on my mom's side. And I knew that, there was some rich heritage there from West Virginia and George Washington, but we were just digging into it. Well, little did I know, I kept it up after Mom died. She would be so excited to know the things I found out. One of which is my dad's direct grandfather was John Smith from Jamestown. And my first husband, my son's father, died in 1985, and his great-grandmother was Pocahontas. And so that really inspired me to dig in. And I found all kinds of things out. It's a matter of fact, I would absolutely love to be a tour guide in Jamestown. Man, could I give you the scoop? Yeah. Before I forget to mention it, the ADHD thing is helped with sativa marijuana. And so I use it. And I try to balance it. It's not, to me, for me, it's like a cup of coffee. And it helps me calm down, which is what coffee does. Things work the opposite in me. And so it really does help me to focus and to be able to sit here. If I weren't smoking weed, I would be climbing those bookshelves or reading a book or something else. Okay, I don't have a script here. I am all into why we're here and how to be the best at who we are once we figure out who that is. When I started the research, I ended up going into the Bible, and of course, when I realized that that wasn't right, I said, okay, who am I? Where can I find out? What do they know? And I started getting into the biology. I've had to learn all kinds of things to do this. I've got physics books, I've got math books. I was great at business math, but not great at algebra and geometry, which I'm still working at. In physics, I'm learning. I understand those things in a very strange way. I guess I'm neurodivergent is what they say. That's a new word to me, but my mind works differently, and I had a brain scan at Amen Clinic because I wanted a diagnosis. I knew I had problems. I had always been fine as the leader of something. I was the oldest of 7, and from that point on, I was just bossy, and I had to be the boss at whatever I did, and that was where I was comfortable, and I never had to function outside that. And if I did, I would quickly take over. But my personal relationships, my interpersonal relationships were wonderful in dealing with business and clients and staff members and employees. I loved every one of them and still consider every one of them in my life a friend. They might not think that way about me, but I had problems with my family and the people closest to me. They didn't understand me, and I was always causing problems that I didn't know I was causing, and I couldn't see it. Still today, I'm sure there are times when I've hurt somebody, but I didn't know. Actually, not too long ago, I read something that said people like me, I try and drink water with lemon and salt. I bought this so it would help me. And it's pretty, isn't it? I read that people like me, where was I? I know. I read that people like me often offend people without knowing it because we're emotionally not perceptive. That's so weird to me because all my life, what has made me good is being spiritually perceptive. But spiritually perceptive and emotionally perceptive must be very different things. Because I would be able to read someone in the spirit. And this is an interesting topic today for me because I never considered that's not true. I have greatly considered whether spirit and body, soul are separate or one. And they have to be one, unless someone can show me differently. I know that I have a physical body right here, but it's no use to me without my mind. And my mind and spirit have to be one. because I wouldn't be able to perceive my spirit without my mind. And I wouldn't be able to use my mind without my spirit. It's like the spirit is the transmission, and the mind is the creator. And it's fine to think things, but the spirit is the charge part, the active part, which reminds me of letters. Because letters are atoms of energy. And words are all powerful. That's why I don't like the word love, because I've looked it up and it's really generic and cheap. People just throw out, I love you. They don't think about it. It's like, hello, how are you? I tell people early on, now that I know a little more about who I am, I tell them early on, I am not into small talk. If you want to lose a friend, talk to me small talk, like ask me about the weather or the time or something like that. I just can't stand it. Such a waste. Okay, I don't know where that was going. The whole drinking process really gets me off track. Letters. One of the first things that I learned about was letters. I've been a speaker and a writer. I've written a couple books, published a few, and I've written all my life. I've got boxes and boxes and boxes of writing. You want to see? That's just a little bit of it. I write all the time. And I like to write. I like to spell it out with my hands because it emphasizes it to me rather than typing it. There's some kind of disconnect from here to there, and I know the connection's real because I used to work with the old data processor computers, like in 67, 68, they had these huge machines, and I signed up for computers because I've always loved that kind of science, the making things work stuff. And so when I did, we had to program the computers. That was such a great experience for me. We'd take these big boards out of these dinosaur-looking machines, huge, that looked like bank vaults, but they had, like, not much. I mean, they really looked like dinosaurs, just a small little, place where you put info in. Most of the info went in from the boards, and they were these huge boards, and we would take wires and read the information. So someone said, wanted this machine to key punch out all these addresses, right? So they would give us the addresses in our language. And then we would take that and put it into code for the computer, which is a binary system. Duplicit. And that information would be coded in color, so we would know, or size or shape, so we would know which wire to put from here to there to tell it what to do. And it worked. And it was cool. And so I had that. That was helpful. So when I started studying duck, in the Hebrew alphabet and how he figured it out, it made sense to me. I did have to take a couple physics classes or read a couple physics books, but that's all right. I needed that anyway. I was always afraid of physics because I thought I was dumb. I didn't think I was dumb, but I sure didn't think I was smart enough for physics. All right, so the letters. Where are my codes about the letters? They are the coolest thing ever. Hold on. There. Okay, so atoms. When Doug did his research, he came to the conclusion, there's so much of this, he came to the conclusion that he took 3 trips to the Sinai Desert and found there the Cave of Machpelah. So it really is a thing. There's so few things that we know for sure. And the only way we can know is if we find written evidence. When Doug was there, he uncovered a number of things which I will eventually share is just too much. One of the things was the Hebrew alphabet, and that during the last Earth Age, it was imperative that the people that were facing the cataclysm or the turnover or the reset or whatever it is, the magnetic pole shift, it happens cyclically. And so those people who studied stars and were supposedly far advanced than us, pyramids and monoliths and sphinx and all the towers, supposedly they had harnessed energy and understood alchemy and gold and all that stuff. So they left, I guess, basically a time capsule with language. That language was a computer code. And that computer code Doug figured out through physics. I believe I can explain that now, but I don't want to get so deep into that. What I can do is show you a picture and give you an idea of what that means. Basically, if you're going to tell somebody your language, you're going to do it with the computer code, you're going to have to do it in some form that they will understand. And the one thing that has been carried forward and forward and forward, even though so much has been burned, is geometry and understanding of the stars and the solar system and all that. And they were just geniuses about that stuff. That's why the pyramids take benefit of all that. It's just miraculous. Anyway, it's all math. So once he realized that, he began to look at physics and realized that each of the letters that were left through the 10 Commandments were X, Y, Z axis vectors. So, in other words, if I found a code, I would be trying to figure out what does the code say, or, figuring the code out, figuring the puzzle out. Well, Doug did. And when he did, he had the background to do it. So he understood then at that time, he had done enough research on his own about the pyramids and different things like that, that he knew some of the codes. And here are the codes that he knew about at the time. The code of large numbers, small numbers, composite word code, algebraic principal code, adjacent letter code swap, number 7, number 400, length of the sacred cubit, which he figured out, the great year number, the cycles, all of that. So he knew these. So when he started reading or trying to decipher this, and he figured out that they used an information system, and he started thinking of it like a computer, right? Rather than, I can't find my notes, so forget it, but I'll share it next time. But when he figured out that it was a computer program that he was looking for, not something that he could hold, right? He figured it out. The letters are X, Y, Z axis. So there's X means something, Y and Z. And around them is an atom. An atom is the basic life form. So an atom holds the XYZ axis with information. That information specifies the shape and sound of the toroidal, which is like a donut. So I've got one somewhere. Okay, here. I ordered some and I'm trying to make one. Doug made a letter and I want to, but I'm going to probably need some help. So this is what a toroidal looks like. And of course it's way bigger, but in there, in that vortex, there's energy. And that energy changes based on the information in the atom, given to the atom, just like the big computer put out information based on what I put in it, right? Physically put in it. So even though we can't see our words and our letters, they're powerful. They're little powers of energy that do things and mean something, but we have to be picky about our words and what we call people and what we profess. We hold lots of power, people. So each of these letters were the 22 letters of the Sefer Yetzirah. The Sefer was the Hebrew language. And if you've listened to any of like the Sefer Yetzirah, it's my favorite. It talks about he had 22 letters and 2 mothers and 10. So he tells you what Moses, that's the storyline, right? Everything's an analogy. What Moses had to work with. And he had just very few glyphs, very few shape, sound originals that he could communicate this information. And so he did it, which is what the Torah is all about. It's code. It's all code. That's how Doug found out that the year of the great year is 12,068 from the Torah, after he figured out that it was an information system of reality, which is what we have to be in. This means so much to you and me. It means that we need to understand the power of our words and what words mean. And it means that we have lots of power over us that we need to take back. And that everything that's been taught has been taught to manage and manipulate for the benefit of those in charge. We can take that power back. We can. It's 30 minutes. I know I've been around the clock, but at least I'm getting there, right? If you enjoyed this, will you give me a thumbs up? Because that's what all the other people say to say, so it must be important. And we'll see if this gets through. I've tried to watch my words.